Shall we start, ma'am, sir?
Yes.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. ISGF welcomes you to the Deep Dive Workshop on Electric Cooking, the Way Forward at Asia Clean Energy Forum 2021. Before starting the workshop, I request all the participants to kindly keep their microphones on mute and turn the camera off during the workshop. And this is a very quick overview of today's workshop. We will have the welcome address and context setting to the workshop by Ms. Reena Suri, Executive Director, India Smart Grid Forum, and a special address by Honorable Member of Parliament, Dr. Ami Hashadre Yajnik. Session 1 is Introduction to Electric Cooking by Mr. Reggie Kumar Pillai and theme presentation by Mr. Simon Batchelor, Director GAMOS. The second session is the panel discussion on challenges in transition to electric cooking in developing countries with our panelists Mr. Rajnath Ram from Niti Aayog, Mr. Simon Batchelor, Ms. Parvata Nalini Samal from Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Ms. Srimati Mukherjee from World Bank, and Mr. Dinesh Garg from Prestige, and it will be moderated by Dr. Nick Russo, International License Manager, MEX Program from Loughborough University. We will be having a closing remarks and vote of thanks by Ms. Reena Suri from ISGF. And without any further ado, I would like to welcome Reena ma'am for a welcome address and the context setting for the workshop. And a quick introduction about ma'am. Ms. Reena brings over 20 years of experience in energy sector and is responsible for the research projects, advisory services, business development, training and capacity building programs, customer outreach activities, member relations and finances of ISGF. Ma'am has contributed to the various advisory services, white papers.
Thank you, Parul. I think yes.
Thank you, ma'am, and welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Parul. So, I'll start by saying, extending a very warm welcome to all our distinguished speakers, panelists, and participants to this India Smart Grid Forum's Deep Dive Workshop organized as part of Asia Clean Energy Forum 2021, which is organized annually by Asian Development Bank on electric cooking, the way forward. And this workshop is being organized in partnership with Climate Parliament and Global Smart Energy Federation. India, having surplus electricity generation capacity and by electrifying almost all households in the country, is heading towards an electric future. Electricity being the cleanest fuel at the user end and increasingly larger share of it being produced from the renewable energy sources, one very important area requiring electrification is cooking. In the recent past, the Government of India has undertaken several targeted programs to provide urban and rural households with access to clean cooking energy and to electrify almost all households in the country. With every home already connected to the electric grid, it makes immense economic sense to promote electric cooking, which is the preferred mode of cooking in many developed countries. Wide variety of electric cooking appliances are available at affordable prices, which include electric pressure cooker, induction cooktop, hot plate, electric kettle, microwave, so on and so forth. Electric cooking is cost effective, safer, and more energy efficient and require less maintenance than the conventional cooking methods and is free of emissions. ISGF has been promoting electric cooking in the recent past and has also published a white paper in November 2020, which is available on our portal for downloading and viewing. ISGF was also organized a roundtable in March 2021 as part of our annual event, India Smart Utility Week, for brainstorming on electric cooking as an important pathway for achieving the INDC target. So with this deep dive workshop organized by ISGF on electric cooking, the way forward at this forum, we would like to collect recommendations and the way forward for promoting electric cooking in India and other developing countries. We would like to bring with this forum for the participants and our audience today, the appropriate policies required, identifying the barriers in moving to electric cooking. How do we educate the electric utilities to actively promote electric cooking? And discuss different strategies for promotion of electric cooking, and what should be the right campaigns for consumer awareness, for the adoption of electric cooking appliances and practices. And also lastly, discuss the leveraging of renewable energy for electric cooking and integration of cooking appliances with the grid. Smart cooking with green electricity bought from the cheapest source on the grid. So with this background, I would like to once again welcome all the participants and speakers, and especially our honorable guest today, Honorable Member of Parliament, Dr. Rami Arshadri Yagnik. She is an Indian politician from Indian National Congress in the state of Gujarat. She is the practicing lawyer since 1984. Besides the BSc and LLB degrees from Gujarat University, ME degree from IIEE Delhi. She holds Masters of Science of Law and Doctor of Science of Law degrees from Stanford University, USA. So with these words, I would like to now invite Ms. Yagnik, Dr. Yagnik, to kindly address the audience and give your special address. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, you're muted, I think. I think you're muted.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Rinaji, for the kind words, and it's a pleasure to be here. Yes, when I saw the topic, it is quite interesting, We talk about clean energy, we talk about renewables, we talk about electric cars, we talk about charging stations, we talk about batteries, we talk about how do we manufacture lithium batteries to accommodate this particular new ecosystem of electric vehicles, and we talk about the plans that we now have for the future of India as far as electricity is concerned. You talk about solar energy, you talk about other renewable energies, wind power. Everywhere you go, you will talk about clean energy. But when I saw the topic that we are talking about electric stoves, it brought to my mind several factors. And some of them are very, very necessary to discuss before we just think that, well, India will accept electric stoves. It will be as good as electric cars. But there are certain issues which I myself encounter when I talk about legal awareness at rural levels. So when we talk about electric stoves, we should not forget that we'll have to bifurcate into urban households and rural households. You go to any city in India, and if you just go about, say, 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers away from the city, you'll find a lot of women, especially the village rural women, with those piles of firewood on their head, collecting and going towards their own homes. Very, very normal sight. I find it very, very amusing when I see that they also have a mobile with them, along with the pile of wood sticks that they have on their head. And that is very interesting, that mobile telephony has reached households in a very large way. But to bring to them the awareness, the good points about electric stoves and how do you use electric stoves in households, despite there being electricity and you not using it, is going to be a big task. So that is one aspect as far as rural households are concerned. As far as urban households are concerned, I think people have started using electric stoves because they get the appliances. The market is there. They can have access to other facilities as well. So the infrastructure problems which are necessary for electric stoves are less as far as urban areas are concerned, but not all urban areas. I'm just talking about the big cities where there are markets meant for this. Apart from that, there is another aspect which comes to my mind when you talk about rural areas, because there's a cultural kind of acceptance which you need to bring. People for centuries, people are used to this food on the flame. So you have to talk about electric stoves with no flame there. They would have to have a cultural kind of a shift. And all this will require some kind of infrastructure in place, educating them. Third, that you will have to bring some kind of awareness, and you will have to show the good points about electric stove cooking. Renewables, fine, because if you talk about that electricity has reached practically every village in this country, it has in a certain way. And even renewable energy is acceptable everywhere. You find a lot of solar panels, even rent a roof for solar panels, wind power. But still, when it comes to having that common grid and getting the power from that grid or putting the power in that grid, that mechanism is yet to become foolproof, and that mechanism is still, I think, for the government to make it very, very strong and robust. So that is the second point. The third point is that you give them every facility. You talk about that, yes, you have the electricity, why don't you consume it? Why don't you prefer it over LPG or over biofuel? They will still think about their priority and they will decide what they want to do. Because let us not forget that India is an agricultural country and most of the rural household is engrossed or engulfed in these kind of dilemmas. What should they do? But when I take the example mobile telephony, I think it is doable and it can happen. But as a company or as a kind of a mechanism or as a government effort, I've seen the plans of the government. I've also looked at what Niti Aayog has to say on what kind of schemes they would like to bring or how would they like to promote along with electric cars, electric stoves, just as electric cars would need batteries and charging stations and some kind of a guarantee to the consumers. The same would be required for electric stoves. So appliances, infrastructure, changing their mindset, especially the rural household, and the most important, the starting point would be the healthcare. So unless and until you show them, the rural households, by way of these camps or by spreading some awareness, that this is the alternative that you would be using if you want to keep good health and you want to take care of your health, this is what is to be given to you. Some kind of subsidy needs to be promised as well. So I think it is a possible thing, but how much it is feasible, I think we need to look into these aspects. A long way to go. Maybe it is slightly difficult because if I remember my journey, about 25 to 28 years back, somebody in a rural area where I was going to give legal awareness was thought that he's a wizard because he had a solar cooker and he had cooked some rice and he was trying to boil some water. And that is how it was kind of an amazing event that day. And that is about 2.5 decades back I'm talking about. And still, today we do find solar panels everywhere along the village areas. But to take this particular concept to rural households, to rural women especially, apart from urban women, I think it's going to be taking a little longer while. So that is all I would like to say. We need to have some kind of more awareness and education on 2-3 aspects, especially the health aspect, because you come up with surveys and studies and reports that show that so many people, so many women were affected because of this fuel, usage of this kind of a biomass, biofuel. So this will have to be put into some very systematic way in order to take it to the rural areas. So I hope to see it become a success. Maybe it will take a little while. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for an excellent address and summing up the whole current scenario and what is required for a successful implementation of electric cooking and promoting it in future. So thank you so much, and it was a pleasure to listen to you and having you here with us. Reggie, sir, would you like to add something here?
Yes, thank you very much. It is an honor to have you and look forward to your support in taking it to the policy making levels in India to push for this. So I have a small introductory presentation. I will, if you stay back, fine. Otherwise, we'll share it with you.
No, I'll be here. I'll be here.
So thank you so much once again, ma'am, for your kind special address, and joining us today. With that, we will move on to our first session, which is Introduction to Electric Cooking by Mr. Reggie Kumar Pillai, President ISGF and Chairman Global Smart Energy Federation. Parul, would you like to do an introduction for sir and pass on the presentation rights to him?
Sure, ma'am.
My screen visible?
Not yet, sir. Parul is uploading her presentation.
Okay.
Parul, you want me to do that in case it's taking time for you?
Yes, ma'am, that will be helpful.
Can somebody give me the presentation right, please? Thank you.
Something, or even my screen sharing is not happening much. I can't type it. The presentation is on the desktop, and when I go to share, it doesn't happen.
My screen is visible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we will have the introduction to electric cooking by Mr. Reggie Kumar Pillai. He's the president of ISGF since its inception in 2011 and is also the chairman of Global Smart Energy Federation since November 2016. He's an internationally renowned expert with nearly 4 decades of experience in the electricity sector in diverse functions covering the entire value chain and across continents. He's spearheading a mission to leverage technology to transform the electric grid in India and provide clean and reliable electricity to every citizen 24/7 at affordable cost. So before now I would like to request Mr. Pillai to please take over. I'm just stopping my sharing.
Yeah. I have a presentation to share. Can you give me that sharing right?
Can you see
Reena, you have my slides which I done in the morning at the main ADP session. So electric cooking, can you project that? On my screen it's not happening. Sorry about that. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants from around the globe. Thank you very much for joining for this special deep dive workshop on electric cooking. And we are honored to have our Honorable Member of Parliament representing Climate Parliament and other distinguished speakers and all the participants from around the globe. Let me start by thanking Asian Development Bank for giving this opportunity to ISGF and our partners to conduct this workshop. This is the fourth. Last 3 days we've been conducting separate deep dive workshop. This is the fourth in the series, and it has attracted a lot of attention from different stakeholders from around the world. I live in the most polluted city in the world, which is New Delhi. We often hear from October to February in the prime time news on the front line of newspapers, we often see about the PM 2.5 levels in Delhi, which vary from 400 to 600, all kind of blame game and how it can be reduced. So last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, we've been going through this without any solution yet in sight. This is so in most part of the urban areas. But what is often not mentioned is the in-home air pollution. In rural India, the PM 2.5, outdoor PM 2.5 is somewhere from 20 to 110 something. But indoor home pollution, even in rural India, varies from 112 to 520, which is a dangerous, alarmingly dangerous level, and particularly in poor and households.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. I'm not unable to find that presentation. Could you check if you can share now?
Yeah. Is it visible now?
Yes, yes, it's visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
But you can put it in projection mode, yeah?
Yeah, I have done it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So even in outdoor, while in rural India, the PM 2.5 in outdoor is 22 to 112 microgram per meter cube. The study, WWF study in 2019 finds that it varies from 106 to 512 in-home air pollution. About 600,000 people in India died of respiratory diseases in 2019, while 4 million people die of in-home pollution around the globe. So this is all despite the immensely popular Ujala program, which the government of India started a couple of years ago, and more than 200 million households have been given LPG connections. But still, due to various reasons, 63% of the households in rural India resort to firewood or biomass for cooking, while in urban India also 18% of those households. Just imagine the outdoor PM 2.5 is 400 to 600 during winter months in North India, and those households which are that 18% which runs into millions of households where they have added pollution from cooking, they must be somewhere hitting 1,000 or even more PM 2.5, which is dangerous levels. And who are the biggest sufferers? These are women and children, and particularly those who are from the lower sections of the society. We need to find a way for giving them clean cooking fuel. And also, this is one of the major emissions from the kitchen, which are hundreds of millions of kitchens emitting every day. Even if it is LPG for cooking, there is still some level of emission happening. And we must reduce or eliminate the emission from the kitchen to meet our NDC target. Although these numbers which I mentioned are all relevant for India, is pertaining to India, all developing countries, the scenario is much the same, or in some places it's even worse. So the rural electrification we have done in past few decades, a journey which we started in the 1960s, but we completed successfully by electrifying all the 619,000 villages by April 2018. And another very successful program, Saubhagya, a targeted program, we connected almost 99% of the households by March 2019. If you ask all of them, do they get electricity 24/7? Today, no, they are not. The next major task before us is to strengthen the medium voltage and low voltage grid for providing them 24/7 reliable quality power. And while doing that, we believe that we can give a 3 kilowatt to 5 kilowatt connection to all those households for the rural electrification purpose. Under the rural electrification programs as well as under Saubhagya, we have given them 250 to 300 watt connections, which is just sufficient for fan, lighting, mobile charging, etc., or TV at best. So medium voltage and low voltage grid strengthening we can do at marginal cost to give them 3 kilowatt to 5 kilowatt, which will take care of their cooking and their cooling load as they move forward. So we published a white paper in November. We also advocated in various forms about popularizing. Sorry, there is something on my screen. So popularizing electric cooking in the country, various methods for adoption, pushing for it, and Ministry of Power was very forthcoming. They were planning a program called Go Electric, which was basically promoting electric mobility. But in February 2020, when the program was launched, they actually, sorry, 2021, it's not 2020. This program was launched in February 2020. Apologies about that mistake. So this year in 21, Go Electric was launched with two components, electric cooking and electric mobility. So there will be and Bureau of Energy Efficiency has been declared as the nominated as the coordinating agency who will be promoting this. So LPG, 275 million households today have LPG connections, and last year over 300 million LPG cylinders were handled in India. So this is not sustainable, neither economically nor from the standpoint of energy efficiency. Just imagine this heavy cylinders being delivered at doorstep at every household and empty cylinder collected back, send it for refueling. Just imagine 300 million, 30 crores of such heavy things handled every year. It's not sustainable. We need to look at other ways for clean cooking fuel, which we believe firmly that electric cooking is the way forward. City gas distribution connections are today limited to only 7.5 million households, whereas new CGD licenses have been given to more than 226 towns. A new CGD connection is 25,000 rupees. That's the average cost which we have been told. And whereas we electrified all the households at 300 watt by spending less than $50, about 3,600 rupees is the average cost under Saubhagya, in which we connected all those households in the rural area. About 27 million households we connected 2 years ago at that cost. We believe that another $100 per household, we will be able to give them 3 kilowatt to 5 kilowatt connection. And all this different, many times I hear when I have, although ISGF been talking about this since 2020, when I've been initiated about this subject by Climate Parliament in a program which they have done in January 2020 in Abu Dhabi. So we have found that there are many ways this can help the grid, and that's why we started studying this. We were exposed to this electric pressure cooker, which later Simon Batchelor will be talking about it. So when we started talking about this in India, many people complained that dosha cannot be made on electric cooking, induction stoves. Roti cannot be made well. So we tried. Personally, I tried. I'm convinced that all this can be done with a little bit of practice. It's a cultural change. We need to advocate. We need to have programs for initiating people for adoption. And what I ate and grew up in Kerala in 50 years ago is not what my children ate and grew up. They were very happy with the noodles and other things which they cook in 2 minutes or 5 minutes. And I'm sure my grandchildren will be happy to cook on electric cookers rather than going to the gas stove or on the firewood which we used to cook when I was growing up in Kerala. So we need to see that this is economically very efficient, energy efficient. Induction stoves have 84% efficiency compared to almost twice that of the gas cook stoves. Electric pressure cooker, on which maybe Simon will be talking more in detail about it. I will not go through all these numbers. So with the subsidized gas cylinder today, to heat 10 liter of water, it's about 5 rupees 9 paise. With the unsubsidized LPG cylinder, it is more than 10 rupees. And electric stove and induction stove, it can do 5 rupees 31 paise, 5 rupees 90 paise, etc. So there are more detailed calculation about it, how much it takes to cook 1 kilo of rice. That is also competitive with the LPG or at this price points today. And with the many hours during the day, with more and more of renewable energy coming onto the grid, we have surplus power at many slots during the day, and we can give price signals to the households or to the customers, and they should be able to cook many things during such slots during the day when the prices are low. And there are smart plugs which cost less than 700 rupees today, which can be connected to your broadband network or the internet network at home, and remotely you can operate those for rice cooker or any kind of appliances at home. So which will give demand, load balancing for the grid. But the surplus power, people should be able to do cooking, pumping, heating, all those kind of activities, which is a boon for the grid. And when there is a higher shortage of the electricity supply demand, yeah, they should be able to give load relief. These are all possible, and the amount of subsidy which we have given, last year budget estimate was something like 39,000 crores of rupees, which is something like $5.5 billion. So that money, 1 or 2 years of that subsidy for LPG will be sufficient for strengthening that medium voltage and the low voltage grid. So the roadmap would be to electrify all commercial kitchens like restaurants, hotels, canteens, military, etc. And we need to estimate a detailed study. We are embarking on to study what exactly is the expenditure capex for strengthening medium voltage and low voltage grid in a village or a semi-urban area, so that 24/7 quality power can be given at 3 kilowatt to 5 kilowatt to all households. And also building new city gas distribution versus strengthening the grid for electric cooking. estimation of annual cost of this LPG cylinder distribution in rural area as against strengthening the electrical network is another, and which one, it's a one-time cost, strengthening the electric network. The subsidy on LPG cylinder is a recurring cost month after month or year after year. And also this study which we embarked on will assess the availability of electric cooking appliances at different regions in the country and the roadmap for augmenting manufacturing capacity in the country, and also skill development for this, the potential in the electric cooking domain, the new job generation, as against job losses in the LPG distribution. All this will come out, but the main thing will be the health benefits from transition from firewood, biomass, kerosene to electric cooking, and the avoided cost towards providing health care to millions of people suffering from indoor air pollution, and also environmental benefits from emission reduction and also avoiding deforestation. Ma'am talked about women walking with the logs of wood on their head back their home for cooking. So they are all leading to actually deforestation. We will avoid that as well. Women and the children will not be pulled out of school for fetching firewood. So that is another social benefit. So we need to develop different strategies for and campaigns for consumer awareness for adoption of electric cooking. And as I said, leveraging renewable energy for electric cooking and integration of appliances with electric grid is the way forward. And we look forward to a cultural change with the support from all stakeholders and policymakers and regulators on this. Thank you very much. I hand over to back to you, Reena.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful presentation on the way forward for electric cooking. And with that, I would like to request Farul to please start with the next presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Requesting Neha ma'am if we can have the slide for Mr. Simon Batchelor.
I have a share button, but it doesn't seem to do anything, I'm afraid.
Could you try clicking on it again, Simon?
Yes, it goes to share content, but it then doesn't pick up. It just says share file, and it's not the same as when we
There is a button on the at the bottom or right side. Just click on that after that.
Yeah, no, it's talking about sharing a file, not my screen. Sorry, everyone. This was working before we started, and now it's gone. I suggest the organizers just turn me off from sharing and turn me back on from sharing, please.
Sure, we'll do that.
Right.
So I will.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm there. Good. Something happened anyway. You can see my screen, I hope.
Yes, we can see you. So just give me a second to just introduce you quickly.
Oh, sure.
We'll have a theme presentation by Mr. Simon Batchelor. He's the director for GAMES. And Dr. Batchelor has over 30 years of experience in development, starting in agriculture and water provision in the 80s. He focused on wind and solar energy, contributing to the early development of renewable energy in Africa and Asia. And he told me not to say more about me, so I will hand over the presentation rights to him and request him to please start his presentation.
Thank you very much, Reena. I was always taught by my professor who gave me my PhD that you're supposed to tell people what you're going to say and then actually say it and then finish with telling people what you have just said. So this is a slide which is going to be my points. And basically, nearly all of them have already been covered by the existing speakers, Reggie, the Honourable Yannick, and Rina. Indeed, I thought I was being clever putting in the mobile phone example, but even the Honourable Yannick picked up on that one. So we will persevere, and I hope I don't repeat too much, but let's have a look at this. I don't think I need to linger on the problem. As Reggie said, this has extreme impacts for you in India, but it has extreme impacts around the world. The Sustainable Development Goal 7.2 is the same number of people are cooking with polluting fuel as they were in 2010. And we really haven't made progress on the clean cooking aspiration, partly because population growth is outstripping our action. But it's also, I believe, partly because of our strategies. Meanwhile, we are discussing, because this is the year of COP26, we are beginning to discuss the whole net zero carbon. Climate change is becoming stronger and stronger on the political agenda, and we need to address that. And so when we're talking clean cooking now, we're also beginning to aspire to net zero cooking. And that will increase challenges. So again, Reggie outlined your India has made amazing gains with the LPG, but that is a fossil fuel. And although there are possibilities of bio-LPG, it nevertheless keeps us tied to fossil fuels, and we need to find ways forward. When we come to electricity, it's very interesting. I challenge you to find publications pre-2018 that talk substantially about electric cooking. Many of the issues that have already been raised by the previous speakers were such that people couldn't imagine electric cooking being available to the rural area. And, you know, India has made amazing gains. I know Reggie has just called for an upgrading to 3 kilowatts and 5 kilowatt connections. But nevertheless, you have reached all the villages with basic electricity. And this is a gain that has been made over the last 5-10 years and really changes the landscape, the context of the situation. The graph or the illustration on the top left of the slide is something from International Energy Authority in 2017. And you'll see that when it talks about electricity, it doesn't even mention cooking. It has cooling and large appliances in the third green line down. But people could not believe that it would be possible to dovetail the needs of the people to do the cooking, which inevitably need high power, with the grid electrification and the increasing access. And so I believe that there was this gap, this cavern. If you just look across the two small cartoons at the bottom, you had a whole bunch of people working in cooking, and you had a whole bunch of people working on electricity. And barely the two ever sat in the same room. There were different departments within the... Sorry. There were two departments in... sorry, I better turn it off. My apologies. Two different departments in the government, and rarely they talk to each other. And therefore you get the situation that Reggie outlined. You've electrified the villages, but without necessarily planning for cooking loads. And as the Honourable Yannick said, we talk about electric cars, we talk about upgrading the grid, etc. It should be possible to include cooking loads. And so one of the things that I would like to in this deep dive, look to the future and look at filling in that gap between the discussion on cooking and the discussion on electrification. And in fact, we in the program Modern Energy Cooking Services talk about energy access as a single strategy, a single investment. It's leveraging all those gains you have made in electrification over the last 10 years and now pivoting them to include cooking so that people have health. Again, Honourable Yannick mentioned the health effects. Reggie mentioned the health effects and the environmental effects, the deforestation, etc. So it's about leveraging other investments. Now, we talk, why was electricity marginalized from the cooking discussions for so long? Well, quite simply, it wasn't there in reliable, sustainable forms, but it was also thought to be too expensive. This graph is from Africa, from Kenya, and it's based on the costs in Nairobi. Kenya is also similar to India. It's improved its generating capacity tremendously over the last 5 years and now has surplus electricity that it wants to manage the demand on. And so when you compare the costs, the grey is charcoal, the lighter grey is kerosene, LPG on the green, and a hot plate, not an induction stove, but a hot plate on the orange. They all come out much of a muchness on cost. And this is to cook a meal, not just boiling water. Nobody, people do boil water, but it's a precursor to the cooking process. And you'll see on the far right in the yellowy orange, the electric pressure cooker. And we, in our research, have shown how energy efficient these electric pressure cookers are. I know that some of the panelists, and I know that some of the Indian policies are focusing at the moment on induction stoves. And induction stoves are indeed much more energy efficient than a simple hot plate. But they don't include insulation. One of the features of an electric pressure cooker is that it insulates the pot. And so if you are cooking for more than 30 minutes, then the electric pressure cooker gives you quite some savings. So I said that the Honourable Yannick stole my thunder on mobile phones. And I did want to say, look, we must look to the future. I'm sure if I was sitting here in the year 2000 and I said that by 2020 all rural villagers would have access to a mobile phone, they don't necessarily own one, but they have access and they do markets and they've improved the selling of the crops and everything. You would say, no, I was dreaming. Well, you're right. I was dreaming and I am dreaming. And I believe that we can move forward with new approaches to electric cooking that are based on energy efficiency. And this is my other example. You did a fantastic job with the LED light bulbs. And by having your ESL and I believe the BE focus on energy efficiency, we were able to save huge amounts of electricity and get this awareness, the consumer awareness and this adoption. And this is what we're looking for in the Go Electric campaign. Now, one of the things about the mobile phones was that people are able to pay for things as they go along. So it's, of course, grid electricity is a pay as you go along, but there are many different versions of this, including off-grid electricity. And we can create affordable pay-as-you-go examples. So again, I'm picking up on Kenya with ECOA, which is now an electric pressure cooker which has built-in a pay-as-you-go technology so that people don't have to find the upfront cost. They can get the cooker and then they cook according to how many times they use it. There is a very similar technology with ATEC in the ASEAN region, which is on induction stoves and includes a pay-as-you-go function. So what about that upfront appliance cost? Isn't that going to be holding people back? And as Reggie said, yes, it is a challenge, and certainly for the poorer quintiles of the society, they need some mechanism to get past that upfront cost. But that actually could be done. There are a huge number of credit associations. You have a massive network of credit associations, and those credit associations just need the signal from the government that it's okay to lend on a kitchen appliance. You know, they lend on agricultural productivity because it is going to increase income, and therefore people will be able to maintain the loan. If we could show them that it would actually save on health bills and health invoices because it would improve people's health, if we could show them that it releases women's time and for other productive activities, then even the basic credit associations may be able to lend on kitchen appliances. But failing that, you'll see that there are global initiatives on results-based financing. I put a quote from the Clean Cooking Fund of the World Bank, a 500 million fund that is available. And of course, there's the whole climate finance. There's we just launched a new methodology for metered connections. One of the challenges of using carbon credits with improved cook stoves that are still using biomass is whether people are actually using them. And so many of the carbon credit processes before have been based on sale of the appliance rather than whether people then use them, whether they reverted back to their old ways of cooking. With electric cooking, of course, it's very easy to meter their use and to pay the carbon credits based on that metered use. So there are new opportunities emerging for financing. Now, how many devices? Again, Reggie showed the range of devices. I don't know what your kitchens look like at home, but I think I've got a kettle and I've got a toaster and I've got an electric pressure cooker. I don't actually have a roti maker, which is probably shame on me as a British person, and essential for an Indian household. And rotis are a problem because the electric pressure cooker will not cook rotis. So do we want poor households to have multiple appliances? Well, our colleagues in India have looked at many different dishes, and of course, taste is really important. Again, Honourable Yannick pointed out that people like the flavour of cooking with flames, and that was certainly the story we were given by governments in Africa, that people would not change because they wouldn't have that smoky flavour. Actually, when we did research and gathered actual data, we found that the majority of people would prefer not to have that particular smoky flavour, and as long as the food was well cooked and well seeped in its own juices, which a pressure cooker does, and it retains a lot of the nutrition. This was important to them. So you'll see the slide from my colleague. 80% of cooking needs could be covered by a single pressure cooker. I'm just going to go back to induction stoves. Do indeed give more flexibility, but you require a set of pans that match with them. And when you look at the cost of the induction stove plus the pans, it often comes out more than a pressure cooker. So finally, I just want to address Reggie's point about peak loads and connections. You know, does everybody need to have a really strong connection? There are new opportunities emerging here because of all that electric car work. There are new research on batteries, and the prices of batteries are just falling tremendously. Lithium titanate has come onto the market in the last 6 to 12 months. And lithium titanate, when I looked at it in 2015, was like $3,000 per kilowatt hour storage coming out of factories. It's now $200. And the feature of lithium titanate is that it's very happy with rapid discharge. So you can slow trickle charge it through a poor electrical connection. Then when you want to cook, it will deliver the 1-2 kilowatts that you need. But there are also emerging opportunities for cooking with a lot less power. And we have colleagues in Bangladesh and Africa that are showing people how to cook their traditional foods in a tasty way, but with 300 to 500 watts from solar. So there are these many opportunities, and this is the storyline I've tried to tell you, that there is an enduring problem, that electrical cooking was strangely neglected, partly because it was thought to be expensive, but there's new opportunity with energy efficient appliances, and that mirrors the LED story in lighting, but it also calls on pay-as-you-go technologies so that we can cover the upfront cost of the appliance and that people can ensure that they are cooking to their own taste. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Simon Batchelor, for a very detailed presentation. We will now move forward to the second session, which is the panel discussion on challenges in transition to electric cooking in developing countries. And joining the panel, we have Mr. Rajnath Ram, Advisor Niti Aayog, Government of India. Mr. Ram has been working on government policy and program formulation related to oil and natural gas, renewable energy, power and coal, and is also leading the initiative of energy data management to create a robust energy data management system of international repute, and is in charge of the initiative to set up an energy modeling unit within the Niti Aayog. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Simon Batchelor, Director GAMOS, in this panel discussion as well. Welcome, sir. We have Ms. Parvata Nalini Samal, Director Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Government of India. Ma'am has over 16 years of experience in energy management and policies in various sectors of energy economy. A very warm welcome, ma'am. We have Ms. Srimati Mukherjee. Ma'am has worked as a senior development professional and team leader for over 25 years at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. and is the energy and climate finance expert, program ambassador pro bono at the International Solar Alliance. Welcome, ma'am. We have Mr. Dinesh Garg, Executive Vice President, Sales and Marketing from Prestige. Sir has more than 33 years of experience in sales, marketing, strategy, PR, business development, and product sourcing. His major contribution has been in building appliances business in TTK Prestige Limited as a business vertical. Welcome, sir. Moderating this session, we have Mr. Nick Russo, International License Manager, MEX program at Loughborough University with 20 years of experience of working in UK government. So his final role was Head of International Innovation Strategy at the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills. A very warm welcome, sir. And with that, I would like to hand over the stage to Mr. Nick for the panel discussion.
Thank you for the warm welcome. It's a privilege to be participating in this very eminent discussion about the potential for electric cooking in India and across other countries as well. We have a number of panelists. I believe Mr. Ram is not yet able to join us, so we will start with Srimati Samal. Is that correct? There's a Rena. What I'm proposing to do is invite each of the panelists to introduce their work and the work that they're doing that focuses on clean cooking in particular. And that should take us about 20 minutes, and then we'll have some time for some discussion. I see there have been some comments coming through on the chat, and there'll be obviously comments and responses from the different panelists as well. So we will aim to cover off as many points as we can. As I said, I think we will start with Srimati Samal, if that's okay. So the Modern Energy Cooking Services Programme, which I'm part, has focused, as Simon said, a lot of research on the benefits of households using energy efficient cooking devices, given the substantial costs and benefits that can be achieved as a result. So we're very interested to know what you're doing at the Bureau of Energy Efficiency within the Go Electric campaign to help households access good quality cooking devices. And I believe you have some slides.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Nick, for your introduction. And I would like to thank ISGF for having me here in this workshop. So first of all, I would like to give my opinion that yes, electric cooking is the way forward, and this is the need of the hour. But at the same time, we have many challenges and barriers to, to penetrate this type of electric cooking, especially in the rural areas. So there are various reasons I would like to highlight why we are bringing electric cooking into our Indian kitchen. As of now, there is a figure that about 1104 terawatt hour energy we are using in India for cooking. And if we see Niti Aayog's energy security scenario, the expectation is about 410 to 600 terawatt hour by 2047. So this much of energy actually we expected to be used at the end of 2047 for the cooking purpose. So, just to there are various good aspects of electric cooking. All these presentations we are listening about what are the benefits of the electric cooking. Why should we try to penetrate more and more electric cooking into our urban as well as rural households? The important aspect before we go into for the labeling program for the electric cooking, that I would like to stress upon that there was a study and it was found that about 4 million units of electric cooking will be used by the year 2018-19, and the compound annual growth rate is about 10%. So looking at these figures, we have to go for some kind of mandatory regime and some kind of labeling program for this kind of electric appliance. And this so for this process, Ministry of Power has already announced the scheme, Go Electric campaign, as Sir has already mentioned. During February 2021, Ministry of Power has announced Go Electric campaign, and this has been the responsibility has been given to Bureau of Energy Efficiency. At the same time, Bureau of Energy Efficiency has also started the star labeling program for electric cooking, and it is expected to save about 3.8 billion units and 3.1 metric ton of CO2 by end of 2030. So these are the kind of expectation we can have from the star labeling program of Bureau of Energy Efficiency that we are going to launch very soon. But at the same time, I completely agree with Ma'am Vyajnik, what he actually mentioned, that in the current, in the Indian scenario, it is not impossible, but it would be actually very, very challenging for us to, convince the rural women, convince the rural people to adopt the kind of electric cooking that we are using. And yes, in urban cooking, that is not very much difficult. But as Mr. Pillai has also already mentioned, that we have some kind of traditional cooking in our kitchen, and that also we have to take care of, and some kind of aggressive campaigning that we have to come up with to actually overcome these barriers. So this is all about from my side, the updates that Bureau of Energy Efficiency is very soon coming up with standards and labeling program for electric induction cook stove, and we will very soon going to launch it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we're excited to see how the Go Electric campaign develops, and hopefully we can be involved in that in some way. Is Sriram with us yet? I'm just looking at Rena. I'm not sure.
No, he's yet to join. You can move to the next panelist, please.
Thank you. Okay. So we're very pleased to have a speaker from Niti Aayog. I had the privilege of meeting you. You may remember when we came to visit India in late 2019, we were wanting to understand the Indian clean cooking environment and the policy shifts that you were undergoing at the time.
Sorry, Nick, sorry to interrupt. Mr. Rajnath Ram yet to join.
Oh, yet to join?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Apologies, I misunderstood. Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to suggest we move on to Srimati Mukherjee. I think you've been introduced to her. She's working with she's an international economist focusing on the financing of energy solutions, particularly clean energy. There are significant issues relating to finance, as people have already said, both in relation to the cost of cooking devices and the cost of cooking fuel when we want to enable people to increase take-up of electric cooking. I'm interested to know what initiatives and models you see that could help cooking with electricity to grow within developing countries and poorer rural communities.
I think you now can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Very good.
You, yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Nick. I must see if I can pull up 2 slides that I've made for this. Share.
Oh, yes, that's
yes.
appearing.
Is it working? Good.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So I want to begin with, I want to answer your question by looking at the importance and the role of local distributors for electric pressure cookers and how we can get the financing into their hands, because I think the previous experience, which I will talk about briefly, shows that without local distributors, it's going to be very difficult to scale up this program. So, following in the footsteps of what Simon had said about giving your punchline at the beginning of the presentation, which I think is excellent, and I also try to do, I want to just give the punchline for each of my 2 slides. So as I go through these points here, I want to mention that the key point here is to change the approach by talking about the need for many multiple stakeholders. I strongly agree with the point that Simon had made about people sitting in their respective silos, and doing work that is very useful for others, but not making sure they find out about it. So multi-sectoral effort is the main message of this slide. We need multiple stakeholders. We need skills that most people don't have yet, which is a lot of fruitful consultations, not just going through the motions, but actually listening and extracting information from consultations so that, one addresses their concerns. I know from my many years at the World Bank and doing many stakeholder consultations that it is very difficult, particularly for low-income respondents, to take time out and actually come to these things. So it's really important not to design a set of consultations that has to be repeated over and over, but rather to really listen and to extract the information. I've seen in the comments that people have been worrying about the utility, the DISCOM, or the electricity company. There are 2 kinds of burdens on them. One is the investment in upgrading the connections that Reggie talked about. I think he said that for $100 extra, one could upgrade the connection to a 3 to 5 kilowatt connection. And so we have to find this money. We have to assure them that it's not going to push them into further bankruptcy, because many state-owned Indian discoms are already technically bankrupt. So where will we find this money? The other concern that the electricity company has is that the rural households, it's very difficult for them, for the electricity company to collect the bills in any case. So will this add to the discom's losses further? How will they get the ongoing revenues for the electricity that's consumed in the electric cookers? So that's one group of stakeholder concerns. The local equipment distributors, can we leverage the networks and experience? We have one generation of trained equipment suppliers who are trained for the solar lanterns, the Pico solar appliances for phone chargers and lanterns. Is it possible to work and build on what they have already done? The other thing is to gain the acceptance of the community. Do we have the right people who can fund and who can actually build and operate community cooking centers to make, for example, my next point, electric pressure cookers as an aspirational product? And also, I want to note that something we haven't done before, we actually, instead of just engaging women, I think it's really important to deeply engage with men who in many cases are the breadwinner of the household, and they have a say in how their money is spent. So one perhaps new angle in engagement with men is to see how we can explain to them about environmental benefits of avoiding firewood, and actually pointing out or doing some awareness raising on the hazards in terms of floods and the capacity of the soil. If all the trees are removed, how could it actually wash away their house or harm them in other ways? So I think these are some of the multi-sectoral skills that we need to bring into this. And my second and last slide is now coming to the money question. So I want to preface this slide on the results-based finance instruments by first saying that we need to move from 357 to 13, 15, 17. And what do I mean by this? I'm talking about the SDGs. SDG 3 is on good health, SDG 5 is on gender, and SDG 7 is on access to energy. I feel that the electric cooking has been stuck in essentially looking at SDGs 3, 5, and 7. If we look a little bit further up the SDG spectrum and we go to 13, 15, and 17, then we will be looking at climate action, which is 13, and 15 is life on land or management, land use, and 17 is partnerships. There's a huge amount of money coming on stream now for climate change, and I think that all of us who've been working on electric cooking have not done a good job on making the climate argument. I'm running out of time, so let me quickly just talk about some of the things that Simon has already mentioned. How do we move this climate capital into the electric cooking space, and particularly use it to make electric pressure cookers affordable, for example? So I won't go through my earlier bullets, which are on what we learned from the first generation of results-based finance, but just to echo what Simon...
Don't disturb.
Sorry? Hello? Okay. Just to echo what Simon was saying, and come to my third bullet point, mobilizing large sums of international capital for climate change requires detailed data and evidence of use. So updated results-based finance is heavily reliant on technology. Basically, we have two new approaches. One is that these appliances are constantly talking to, through the internet, they are talking to people who are monitoring the use and the performance. And we have to target local distributors, as I mentioned earlier, and help them to overcome barriers to access these international funds. Unique product keys, Internet of Things-based data capture, We don't need any human interface for verification. So the incentive to the distributor, this is again building off something Simon mentioned, is very important not just for upfront adoption, but for frequent usage which is being remotely monitored. So the person who's providing the climate capital actually knows what they're buying. They're buying the avoidance of biomass use. If you can show that this cooker is being used several times a day, then you can be fairly sure that biomass is not being used. And that is how we can subsidize the cost of all of these as a climate-focused expenditure. I'll stop here. Nick, I hope I haven't gone too much over my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahara. That's helpful. There's a lot there, isn't there? It's a complex area. Establishing the kind of market conditions and the flows of finance is certainly not easy. And it's, I think we're all agreeing that the need is there for a partnership approach to bring people together in organizations to find and negotiate commercial models that work going forward. I'm very pleased to say that we now have Mr. Ram from Niti Aayog, who is here to speak to us about the policies that they've been developing for the government of India relating to clean cooking. I did meet him briefly when we went to India back in late 2019. I'm not sure if he remembers that, but he's been very influential. And I think India has seen huge changes over the time that you've been involved in your work. So we're very keen to hear from you what you see as the kind of the role of cooking within the kind of Indian energy strategy and the main challenges that you see in realizing the potential of electric cooking for your population. Mr. Ram, are you able to say your thoughts?
Good evening to all the distinguished panelists, and good evening to ISGF for inviting me here. Thank you very much for inviting me to brainstorm this topic of challenge in the electric cooking in the developing world. And the topic is very timely, as everywhere we have been talking that the clean energy transition, the clean energy pathways, low carbon and the climate and so on. So in case of India, although we have achieved 100% electrification to the household, but the moot question remains whether this would change the perception of the citizens of India to switch over to the electricity-based cooking, where the traditional cooking with the biomass in rural areas still persists. And though the urban people have switched to the larger clean-based cooking, LPG and the piped natural gas, although the government has put a lot of efforts to penetrate the LPG to the rural masses, it's relatively clean and empower the women through the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana and providing about 83 million LPG connections in a record time. Although we have been talking SDG 7 goal, which clearly entails access to the affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy and a modern energy for all. But if you really talk to the clean energy transition pathways, India has taken several bold initiatives, including the huge RE target for the 450 gigawatt by 2030. At the same time, I would also like to mention that the deficit of the peak electricity demand and the peak not met, it has come down drastically. I mean, it's just 0.5% only. So there is a sluggish growth in the demand for the power sector as now. We have been receiving such reports from our government agencies. So then the real issues lie where the new initiative of 450 gigawatt renewable electricity will be adjusted. So that's a moot question. So definitely we need to identify certain key demand area, and this addition of clean electricity can be adjusted to decarbonize the industrial sector. Certain power which are coal-based can be phased out and reduced by substitution. Certainly to electrify certain demand. Also, the electric vehicle is the one potential area. But other areas could be the electricity-based cooking. A huge impact can be made with the penetration of electricity-based cooking. Because, you know, although we try to build and penetrate LPG to the larger people, but India itself importing 85% of its petroleum requirement. It's a huge import bill, and this LPG also being imported. So 20% of the demand of entire petroleum production of the LPG. So our cooking as of now is largely based on the LPG and the piped natural gas and the biomass, particularly in the rural area. So the major challenges I could see shifting the demand from the cooking to the electricity base is the following. First, change in the mindset. There is a huge awareness campaign can be done, which can address the issues like making them aware that India, although it is providing LPG for cooking needs, but we are importing. There is a huge import bill. So somehow the mindset of the people needs to be changed. Therefore, it is and we have to also tell them that it is the interest of the nation. And and clean source of energy is available in the country in abundance. The other challenges I could see the infrastructure. So the trade-off. Suppose although we have made our citizens to provide the 100% electrification, but the infrastructure requirement for electricity-based cooking, you need to work a lot to strengthen the infrastructure, like upgrading the distribution transformer, transmission lines, and all those things. On the other side, the existing infrastructure already created for LPG and PNG, and if some of the demands is shifted from there to the electricity-based cooking, how this the trade-off can be there. So all those kinds of aspects need to be taken into consideration. The third, I could see the appliance safety and the quality and the safety standards. Those are the things needs to be also given due focus if you really want to go for the to make the electricity-based cooking penetrate in the system. Therefore, electricity-based cooking is promoted if it can be promoted in the untapped areas where already there are no cooking means and people are still based on the traditional biomass thing. That could be the potential area where we can think, and maybe a policy can be thought of how to bring this cooking demand in this particular area. In the other areas where all the other kind of wells are available, maybe the electricity can be just an additional source of cooking but how the roadmap needs to be prepared and to be worked on. That's the key area we may like to discuss and deliberate, and maybe this study posed by the ISGF can take all these factors into consideration. Microgrid, mini-grid, that could be another areas where we can think of, and a decentralized RE solutions can also help in a lot way to penetrate the the electricity-based cooking system. So some kind of policy formulation to promote this electricity-based cooking, and maybe we can also think or can deliberate, because in LPG you are providing subsidy to the people. Can such proposals be also considered when you are going for the electricity-based cooking? So these are some of the key policy areas where I think certainly need to be debated and discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a lot there. And it's great to know that there's an openness to discuss policy options. I think government clearly has huge potential to unlock some of the barriers and the challenges that people have referred to. And I think it's finding the right way to kind of address some of the financial barriers that are otherwise going to hold back the market from growing. And that may be just a short-term injection of finance that could then be paid back as revenue from electric cooking grows and as the distributing companies benefit from that and their problems become reduced. Thank you very much. So the last speaker before I invite Simon to respond is Sri Garg from TTK Prestige. So this is very much the private sector view. As you'll all be aware, Prestige is one of India's leading kitchen appliance companies, been working in the sector for over 60 years. And they've gone from producing stovetop pressure cookers, which are widely used across India and very much part of Indian cooking culture, but they now offer a range of electric cookers, including induction stoves, rice cookers, and electric pressure cookers. So we're very interested in his observations on how you go about promoting the availability of devices and helping people to access them and therefore to move towards electric cooking. So Sri Garg, would you like to give your comments?
Yeah, good evening. Good evening, everyone. And I thank ISGF for inviting me to this session. And I would, being the last speaker, may repeat many of the things which the earlier distinguished speakers have already talked, but I would try to bring a new perspective to this. As I am from the industry, I will certainly bring the industry perspective. And when I bring the industry perspective, let me first say that the subject is very much relevant today and it is gaining momentum. And the logic that the household should move to electric cooking is very obvious. There's no logic which can defy that, and everything works in favor of that. But the moment I get the industry perspective and the consumer perspective, I would divide the consumer into two, rural and the urban. Now, when we are talking about biomass cooking, rural consumer generally uses the biomass cooking, and there the mindset, which we have already talked about, is very different. I'm going to talk about a very different thing. First of all, the biomass cooking or biomass is considered to be free of cost. And that one thing is so deeply entrenched in the rural folk that unless something else available which is equally good or free of cost for me, why should I change? Now coming to deep-rooted thought that the food which is cooked on the flame or on the biomass is tastier. Ms. Mahua pointed out that we must engage the men, because the men believes that food cooked on the biomass is tastier and he's not going to compromise. And when he's not going to compromise, the women of the house cannot really do anything much. And when I go to the sequence, the moment this happens, the pollution is not considered to be a major issue. Because this can be taken as, okay, is a smaller issue, not a very perceivable problem. Over a long period of time, the health issues come and that tend to get ignored. And with these three things, when you talk about getting electric cooking in the rural household, Mr. Reggie pointed out that today we are supplying around 300 watts of electricity, which is really not sufficient for cooking. We need at least 1 kilowatt of electricity supply position where we can at least tell them that yes, you can do the cooking. And apart from that, you need uninterrupted electricity supply, which is not the case in India today. Forget the rural side. Now, this is the position of the rural folk, and therefore I have tried personally for last 2 decades to push and penetrate the electrical cooking and electrical appliances in the household, but the adoption is very, very slow. Cost is the secondary aspect. They are willing to put the upfront cost for the appliance, but they do not see a sustainable cooking method in that. Because if I have to make a tea for a guest within 5 minutes and electricity is not there, I am fully dependent on that. How do I do it? Whereas any other source, they know it is reliable. Today, electricity is not so reliable as we think in the urban areas, especially metros. Now I will come back to the urban consumer or urban mindset. All the urban consumers today we know are dependent on LPG, which is far, far more reliable. And believe me, people at the consumer level do not consider pollution as a major issue. They do not even see the emission from LPG. They see, okay, it is okay. Everybody is using, I'm also using. The moment you tell them, okay, move to electricity, they say, will you give me 24 hours? When I need it, I don't have it. What will I do? And I have personally seen this kind of resistance. We have done a lot of research at the ground level. And when we see this, let me tell you and let me confess, I am not able to push induction cooking at my own home. Now, all the appliances which Simon showed in his presentation, all the appliances have been available across the world, in India also. People are buying it, adopting it, penetrations are there. But all of them do not offer a complete cooking solution. LPG, you know, it is a complete cooking solution. You want to cook anything, they know how to cook it. But you take electrical kettle, it can only give you boiling of water. If you take toaster, it can only do the toasting. You take any of those things, only one good option is induction cooking, which is efficient, safe, affordable, but at the mindset of the consumer, electric cooking is expensive. While in reality, it may not be the case. Reggie showed a lot of figures in terms of the efficiency and the affordability, but in the mindset, it is expensive. Until the time all of us put and change the mindset, our progress is going to be very, very slow, which Dr. Yajnik has pointed out in the beginning itself. With this, I would like to end here whatever I wanted to say in this forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Challenging, certainly, indeed. And I think one of the concepts that we've been working with in the MEX program is fuel stacking, and the concept that people will probably for some time continue to combine a number of different cooking devices and cooking fuels as the environment changes according to the economic conditions as well as the quality of the electricity. So Simon is also on the panel, and I'm going to invite him now to respond to some of the comments that have been made by other panelists, maybe focusing on how the MEX program could potentially be a partner in the journey that you're on in India. Simon.
I know that Nick wants me to promote the MEX program and to say that we can be your partner. Of course, we are here to help. But I think we're running out of time. Reggie, any moment now, Reggie or Rena are going to say, hey, we're at the end of time. So I try and keep it really...
We can continue as much as we like. No problem. This is not... Okay. When we finish, somebody else is starting on this platform that is not there. So we have enough time. Please continue.
Okay. Nevertheless, as good discipline, I will try and keep it very short. I think I want to start with a call to envisaging the future. I mean, Dinesh, you're quite right. The existing state of affairs, sometimes your induction stove doesn't work. And indeed, that is one of the big differences between an EPC and an induction stove. EPC can lose power for some minutes and still just carry on. Your meal is not ruined because of the insulating effect. But nevertheless, you're right. The power has to be there. So my call is not for your experience now, but what you can imagine it to be in 2025, in 2030. Things have changed very quickly, even in the last 5 years, from it being it being very expensive to imagine a off-grid solar electric cooking system. And yet now, we've just been talking on the chat, it is actually cheaper than an equivalent biogas system in terms of the capex. And prices are coming down all the time. So the whole idea of energy storage, that challenge that you said, where you don't have electricity when you want to cook a meal, we're just about to start experiments in Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, where people have access to a battery that they trickle charge over the night. And of course, in terms of smart grids, that means that the utility is able to give power when it wants to give power. You can, I think it was Reggie in his presentation, talked about different time of use tariffs to signal to people, okay, you do your trickle charging and then you cook with it. Look, to be clear, I'm crazy enough that for 2 years, I just trickle charged a battery and then I did all my cooking at home on it, just to prove to myself that you can actually cook from batteries. And, you know, they're coming down cheaper and cheaper. And again, I referred to the Honourable Minister's comment about electric vehicles. You know, all that momentum towards the future. Now, I fully accept that we could reach 2030 and completely ruined the world. Everybody will be driving electric vehicles and there won't be enough electricity distributed to the right areas. Everybody may have gone, renewable energy is not good enough, we're going to have to go back to fossil fuel. But the indications are, when you look at IRENA, IEA reports, SDGs, the indications are that all our governments have committed to net zero carbon. They have committed to shifting the transport sector, and but they are not yet committed to shifting cooking loads. And personally, I look at Africa and are worried that we will reach 2030, 2040, and we will have got rid of a lot of the industrial carbon, but there will still be a lot of deforestation, and there will be non-renewable generation of biomass. Population growth. You know, by 2040, we're going to add another 2 billion people to this planet. If we carry on with the trends as they are. So, you know, we need to look to the future. Sorry, I'm waffling. I'm trying to respond to what people have said. But I do believe that we mustn't judge these ideas by our experience, and particularly our experience in our formative years, in our childhood or in our teen years when we were students. I've got grey hair. Back then, the internet didn't even exist. When I was at university, we didn't have computers. That's how quickly it's changing, and we need to make sure that it's a just transition, that it's an equitable transition that doesn't leave poor men and women behind. I just want to pick up on Mohawa's comment. We need to talk to the men as well as the women. I know the women are the focal point of the health problem, etc., but it's often the men who are the decision makers. And so I just put that in. Thank you, Nick. Sorry, I just brain dumped.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, one thing I'd like to just raise for the panel before we do finish, I think there's been a lot of focus, quite rightly, on the households, the consumers, how we persuade them, how we offer them a good cooking solution. But what I'm seeing in a lot of the chat, and has been mentioned on the discussions, is the challenge of the electrification, and the bodies responsible for delivering electricity access are running out of energy. They're running out of finance. And so there's a challenge in getting beyond where they are now, which is they've invested hugely in putting out a grid, the connectivity, by village is immensely impressive across India, but as we're acknowledging, the quality of the actual electricity experience is not where everyone would like it to be. So that requires further investment. And yet, if people were cooking with electricity, that would start to create finance coming into the system away from maybe buying charcoal, certainly in urban areas, and it could open up economic opportunities because it frees up a lot of time. So one can imagine a future, as Simon was saying, in 5 years where everything is flowing, where the money is flowing, the investment is there in the electricity infrastructure because of the increased demand. It's how do we get from where we are now to there, and what kind of policies maybe could be put in place by the government of India that would drive down the cost of the investment or increase the incentives for people to invest. And a bit like discussions we're having with EESL, bulk purchase of cooking devices to drive down the cost for the end user as well. So just interested in any final comments on that kind of the fundamental difficulty from the point of view of electricity suppliers. And we're seeing this in Africa as well, I should say. Is that too hard?
Was that directed at anybody in particular, Nick?
It was not. No, anyone who'd care to comment. We're seeing this in Light and Power, aren't we? That they don't have the finance to put into kind of providing cooking devices and then having them paid for over time. There's been comments about the difficulty of collecting payments in rural areas in India. These are big challenges. Maybe I'll just leave that as a challenge.
They are big challenges, but I'm just going to inform the audience. In Africa, they have the situation where they now have surplus electricity and people are connected in urban and peri-urban areas, and yet people are still using charcoal. So in a city like Kampala, which is about 2 million people, 90% plus have a connection to a strong grid that is quite capable of delivering a couple of kilowatts, and yet 70% of them are still cooking with charcoal. And if you look at the deforestation in Africa, it's actually clustered around urban situations. So I know that we need to leave no one behind, and we need to reach the rural areas. But actually for Africa, the situation starts in the urban, peri-urban market towns. And that leads me into just say one thing that I really wanted to say in my presentation, and I forgot, is that, yes, this discussion is about India, but India could be an exporter of technology to Africa. You could pave the way in new variants. We've acknowledged that we don't have a single device that really cooks all types of food. There is opportunity that the brain power of India, which is massive, could actually be an export opportunity into Africa. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe I'll draw a line there unless anyone else wants to come in and comment, and hand over to Meena.
Can I add something, Mr. Nick?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, if I understand you clearly, that your point was to have a good policy, maybe incentive-based policy to for the good penetration of the electric cooking in the urban area and mostly in the rural area. And the second point, as you mentioned, there should be some kind of financial, public-private partnership kind of thing that will actually lead this kind of policy. And I want to inform you that Energy Efficiency Services Limited is one of the ESCO that is actually implementing such kind of new technologies. And just before this program, I got a call from BSS Yamuna. This is the DISCOM in Delhi, and they are going to initiate one program, demand side management program, in association with Energy Efficiency Services Limited, to provide the consumer the electric cooker as well as induction cook stove. So this is the beginning, I think. So we have many ideas in mind, and we have to go actually a long way to make it successful. As Mr. Garg rightly pointed out that there are many barriers in point of electric cooking penetration in the mainly in the rural area, and the most important point is the uninterrupted power supply to the rural area. So to begin with, we have to, to bring some incentive-based policies as well as some very robust awareness program among the rural consumers. And then, just to give an example, when we shifted from the incandescent bulb to the LED bulb, so there was a transition phase, and we also faced many barriers from to bring out LEDs into the market when the incandescent bulb was only 10 rupees and the LED bulb was 700 rupees at that time. And now it is affordable, and common consumer can buy the LED bulb at 50 rupees or 40 rupees price. So this is the kind of market penetration, and this is the kind of market shift we have to do, and we will never give up, and we will keep on trying. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very positive message.
I would like to add here.
Yes,
just 1 minute. I would like to add here what Mr. Simon said. All the barriers are there, and we are working against them to cross those barriers. And in next 5 years, the world will see much larger portion of electricity cooking. That is for sure. People are adapting and they are understanding the whole issue.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Moa, thank you.
Yeah.
Moa, you wanted to
thank
say something as well.
Yes, I just wanted to say something very quickly, which is that I think that people who are engaging the government, for example, Reggie through Smart Grid Forum and so forth, it would be great if you could see whether the government of India is interested in putting this under one of the climate topics, because as there are discussions and negotiations with the Green Climate Fund and overall climate capital, I think Ministry of Environment also has to be involved. I think if this comes under the climate umbrella, then and the Indian government is willing to look for funding for it from international sources, then I think that it'll be a game changer in terms of new business models that can apply to it. Thanks.
Thank you. And within the MEX program, we've invested in developing a framework that will enable it to be much easier to collect carbon credits for companies that enable clean cooking or cooking with electricity. I think Simon alluded to that as well. But that all adds to the kind of facilitating the flow of finance which is needed. Great. Anyone else want to make any final comments? It's been a really productive discussion, I think. Hello, yes?
Can I just add one thing here?
Sure.
Yeah, it was it was nice hearing all of you and all of the comments and the positive suggestions. But when you talk about the credits, I was just reminded of the CDM projects that came up, right in 2001 or 2002. And today we don't know what is happening to these projects exactly. So how do you trade off with the CER? So I think it's a little far-fetched as far as electric stove is concerned, because we are talking of individual households, and to bring to their mind this kind of a credit kind of a system, I think it will not work right now. But the most important is that you have to have an uninterrupted power supply. I think that infrastructure would just help the rest of the mechanisms which we awareness and showing them the positive aspects of environment and their health. I think the electricity sector will have to be taken into confidence, because they have their own other problems. We do say that there's a surplus power in electric power in India, but if you look at the generators and you look at the discoms, I think somewhere there is a little problem which needs to be solved. So this aspect also should be kept in mind when we talk about future projects. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, I think we certainly agree with that. Not a little problem at all, I suspect. I think what Simon was alluding to was that we don't have to solve the whole problem in one go, and maybe a focus on urban areas where people are already paying for the fuel, that the biomass fuel, possibly quite high costs, and therefore are more readily persuadable to change, and where the grid is more robust, obviously. But yeah, I think, as you say, you can't ignore the rural areas as well. Okay, I feel like an auctioneer. One last chance for anyone to comment, and then I think I'm going to hand over to Rena to say the final few words. Lovely. Thank you. Rena, would you like to step in? Or Reggie?
Rena, you there? Yeah, she's there.
Yes. Thank you so much, Nick. This was a wonderful discussion and very insightful, and we could cover different aspects of electric cooking and what should be the right way forward. We have heard from the policy making recommendations and the financing recommendations, and from the appliance manufacturer side, the overview of what is required. So thank you so much to our panelists and for joining us today, and for Nick for excellent moderation of the whole discussion. So before I present the vote of thanks to all our esteemed speakers today, Parul, would you like to make any announcement?
Ma'am, we can have a group photo first with all our speakers and Yajnik ma'am.
Yes. I request all our esteemed speakers to please switch on your cameras and give a nice smile for a picture.
We are done, ma'am. Thank you.
So, do you have any other announcements to make for the poll and the
Yes, ma'am. So I request all the participants to kindly participate in the polling, and please cast your votes. The links for the same have been posted in the chat box, so it will be really great if you can cast your votes. And now for the final word, for the vote of thanks, I would like to invite Reena ma'am again to the stage for her final words.
Thank you so much, Parul, and would like to request Mr. Pillai if you would like to say anything before I give vote of thanks and we close the session.
Special thanks to Honorable Madam Yajnik for staying back till the end of the session. Thank you so much for having you. I would look forward to you to take the issue to the Parliament, so that an Electricity Act is under revision for last several years, as you know, and this could be a major point, a pillar of electrification in the country. That voice need to be brought to among the lawmakers, and we look forward to your leadership in that. Thank you, ma'am.
I will. Thank you so much for your suggestions. I'll take it forward, definitely.
Thank you so much, sir. So with today's session, we know that there is no doubt about the fact that the shift from polluting fuels like charcoal, firewood, and LPG to electricity for cooking will reduce greenhouse gases emissions considerably, and the indoor air pollutions will fully eliminate. So India and other developing countries are making strong progress towards greening the electric grid with larger share of renewable energy. And today, electricity is the primary energy source for our essential needs in the household. And electric appliances are also commonly being used now in the urban households, and people are familiar and comfortable with the use of different electrical appliances. And it would not take much effort and time to motivate them to shift from regular cooking to electric cooking. However, a robust awareness campaign is required for promotion of electric cooking in the rural areas, as suggested by our esteemed panelists today. So at the same time, it is important for government to formulate new policies and programs to promote electric cooking. LPG subsidies may be reallocated to fund capex for strengthening electric distribution networks in the semi-urban and rural urban areas, as well as providing some subsidies for the electric cooking appliances for promoting and incentivizing people to move to cleaner cooking options. So it is also strongly recommended that that we have the right standards and in place for having the right appliances for before we take this transition. So which Ms. Samal has already told that they are working very strongly on having the right standards for the appliances also in place. So with that, I would like to end today's session, and we've had a wonderful round of discussion with our excellent speakers and panelists. And again, a very thank you to Honorable Member of Parliament, Dr. Yasik, to have joined us today and been part of the whole program and the discussion. And I would like to thank Mr. Simon Batchelor for a wonderful team presentation and bringing his expertise and experience to the panel and for our audience. I'd like to thank Mr. Rajnath Ram, Advisor Niti Aayog. Thank you so much, sir. We understand that you were busy with the other meeting, but thank you for taking time out from that and joining us today here. And I would like to thank Ms. Pravatnanli Samal, Director Lead, for sharing her insights and all the good work that we is doing for promotion of electric cooking in India. I'd like to thank Ms. Mukherjee to have brought in excellent points forward, particularly on the financing side of how electric cooking can be worked upon. And I would like to thank Mr. Dinesh Garg from Prestige to have brought in the experience and way forward from an appliance manufacturer's point of view. And lastly, thank you so much, Mr. Nick Russell from Next Program to have joined us today and wonderfully managing the whole discussion and bringing excellent points forward for getting the recommendations and way forward for electric cooking to get promoted in a big way. So thank you so much once again, and from India Smart Grid Forum and Asia Clean Energy Forum side, we thank you and for joining us, for all the participants to have given so many points of sharing their questions and their views in the chat and being such an active audience. And lastly, I'd like to thank and hope and pray that everyone stays safe, and please take care and keep joining us for our future programs and future workshops. Thank you once again. Please take care.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. And
thank you so much.
We hope next year ACEF we will be able to meet face to face in Manila. Thank you. Stay safe. God bless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.